A room with a view. If you were looking for a room with a view somewhere here in the valley of the Loire, about 150 miles west of Paris, and you went along to a house agent to see what he had to offer, he might very well send you here to the village of Trôo. When you got here, you'd find that the view was everything that you might expect and want. But you might be just a little surprised by the accommodation that he was offering you. In fact, very surprised. Because it might be something like that. A cave, a hole in the side of the hill. Now, you might think this was a bad taste joke on the part of the house agent, because after all, it's a long time since our ancestors used flint axes and lived in caves. But it wouldn't be, and you wouldn't need to stay very long here in Trôo till you discovered why. These holes are inhabited. In this one village with a population of only 600, 30 families still live in caves. In other villages along the valley, there are around 50 more underground homes. And the people who live in them, the troglodytes, are by no means looked down upon or despised. This old gentleman has lived in a cave for most of his 95 years, and as the oldest inhabitant of Trôo, he's respected as much as anyone. The fact that he's survived to such a venerable age does say something for the cavernous life. In this part of France, even if you don't live in a cave, there's a good chance you'll work in one. Even if you live in a house, there'll be a cave to store wine and potatoes, to entertain guests or garage the car, for growing mushrooms or stabling horses. Even the village bakery is in a cave, so no one's surprised if you happen to live in one. Mind you, cave dwelling does have its snags. This might have been quite adequate just for Madame Boiron and her husband. But since the day they moved in, there have been 6 additions to the family. And it's not so easy to make a new bedroom in a cave cut from the solid rock. Not only that, but before you can enlarge these properties, there has to be a special permission from the inspector of mines. And that's not easy to get. But however cramped the space, there is one advantage to be gained from living underground. Winter and summer, whatever the weather, the temperature stays much the same. Even when it's well below freezing, the troglodytes of Trôo can stay snug in their homes with only the minimum of heating. In the summer, they enjoy cool, air-conditioned comfort. Perhaps it's this that has recommended the troglodyte life to the people of Trôo for so long. The whole of this hillside is honeycombed with caves that have been lived in and worked in for 600 years. In the 11th and 12th centuries, this was a fortified town of 4,000 souls, and to get the stone to build the castle and the churches, the quarrymen burrowed deep into the hillside. Behind these houses are 3.5 miles of galleries and caverns and underground workings. And many of the troglodytes are living at the entrances and exits of an underground maze, living much as their ancestors did 6 centuries ago. 30 years ago, all these caves were lived in by local people, by the villagers of Trôo. But since then, there's been a revolution. If you're feeling sorry for these poor wretches who are forced to live in holes in the ground, then you can forget your pity from now on. Because very soon, there won't be any holes left for them to live in. They'll all have been bought out by these smart set from Paris. Cave dwelling has become the chic way to spend your summer holidays, your weekends, and your money. And it's amazing what you can do with a common old cave if you've got enough money to spend. This is the subterranean summer retreat of a textile tycoon. Behind these bolted doors, buried in the rock, are 12 luxuriously furnished rooms and 2 bathrooms. Altogether, there are 9 rows of caves climbing up the rock face, and this is the highest, the millionaire's row of the troglodyte world. More highly prized because they're drier and have a better view than those further down the hill. The caves themselves weren't expensive to buy, a few £100s. But tens of thousands have been spent on them, and once they're converted, and as long as they stay fashionable, they can cost you anything from £5,000 to £15,000. At the moment, caves have a scarcity value. Although the best ones are already occupied, and those that are left are small or sunless or damp, and only good for growing mushrooms, the chances are that someone is going to buy them, just for weekends. To make a cave truly comfortable like these, you've got to spend a lot of money. And if the local people of Trôo had this kind of money, they wouldn't spend it on a cave. They'd buy a house instead. It's only the weekenders who are buying not a home but a gimmick who find the investment worthwhile. This is the cave that started the craze. Back in 1935, it was bought by an architect, who perhaps as an exercise lavished a lot of care and money on it. Then came the war and the years of austerity, when to build a place like this just for weekends was out of the question. It was only in the 1950s that affluence and perhaps atomic panic caused the cave to really catch on. After all, if this place ever falls out of fashion, they'll still have a fallout shelter, and well furnished at that. Although it's very little used and there hasn't been a fire here for months, the air is warm and dry, and in the 3 bedrooms and the sitting room and here in the dining room, there's little sign of dust or damp. There's no doubt that this is a very comfortable cave. We saw the revival of primitive art a long time ago, and now it's smart to live in caves. And not only here, in the south of France, where there's a shortage of natural or antique caves, an architect has found it worth his while to build artificial ones. And by the time he's furnished them and landscaped them, he can sell them from anything from £45,000 to £60,000. Well, clearly all it needs now is for someone like Christian Dior to create a really stunning line in goatskin with flint accessories for the lady of the cave, and the picture will be complete. Good night.